we are the last time we departed from a question about the global awareness and the possibilities to develop a global community. Today, we would like to depart from a different starting point. We would like to question identities, identification points of communities, and how these build up at multiple stages in order to understand how we could reinforce our awareness and get to the planetary level by to the recognition of what we are and who we are as individuals and as participants in many communities to which we belong. I would like to present our guests today, and I will before introducing let me thank once more to the Public Fund for scholarships and training of the Republic of Slovenia that makes these events possible. They are free of charge. As you know, the house rules are very simple. The rule number one is to be active in the debate. You can raise your hand at any point and speak up. The meeting is recorded, so it will be available also at later stages from our website. Who are our guests? I'm very pleased to present Mr. Bojan Brezigar, journalist, editor, and publisher from Trieste. And more than that, Bojan has been involved in local and regional politics. He has been one of the initiators of the European Association of Daily Media in Minority Languages. Then going next to the next city, to the next port, moving to Barcelona to welcome Mr. Vicent Partal, publisher and the editor-in-chief of VilaWeb, the leading digital media in Catalonia these days. With Vicent Partal has got an important journalistic career behind, who he has been with following important events from throughout of his career, including the Balkan Wars, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and some other important milestones. And he has been the source of Catalonia these days. And last but not least, I'm moving on to Novi Sad to welcome Natasha Herod. Natasha is an entrepreneur, the lady who's been behind the multiple ethnic community of Vojvodina, the northmost region of Serbia, and the multi-ethnic city of Novi Sad, who has been, who is hosting the, who is going to be the capital of culture in the upcoming year 2021, has recognized the multi-ethnicity of the city and its very rich mediatic landscape as one of the important focal points of its program, and Natasha is one of the protagonists of this important part of the upcoming program of Novi Sad's cultural capital. Welcome all of you, and of course, I would like to welcome Violeta Bulc, the curator of the Ecocivilisation, who is here with us today. And Violeta, I'm turning now to you. Please, could you take the word and present us with where we are in the debate related to the communities in the eco-civilization. Violeta, please.
Thank you very much, Yuri. I would appreciate if you allow me to share my screen at this point. First of all, of course, it's a real honor to host such a distinguished guest, and I'm already excited to see and hear and experience their point of view. Our first discussion on eco-civilization was very productive. We took, as you said, a global view and see what is already emerging on a global scale. And I'm here more than happy to share with you the conclusions that I draw together, and I apologize to my previous guest if I missed something really important, but this conversation I expect will continue and will continue to grow in many different directions. We are just at the beginning of a journey on which we try to identify if we are at the tipping point that could imply the emergence of new civilizational paradigm. We're not at the point that we will say we have a proof yet, but we're at the point that there is so many little signals, weak signals that are that continue to emerge and asking us to take the world at our lives of who we are, and what we stand for from a fresh perspective. And that is what we dare to do. As the main position statement of all our talks says, we dare to dream together, because when we dream together, we are ready to create as well. So allow me now that I just walk you through a couple of key points, and just very briefly also touch the basic elements of eco-civilization. So this is the second talk on eco-civilization and communities. As Yuri said, the global view will be now complemented with a more local and regional view. But you will see that even in our first conversation, we could not avoid this connectivity with local and regional levels. So first of all, let's just take a look at one more time at the big picture and what so far we feel that we can invite you all into regarding the eco-civilization. One is that it seems like it that this society that we are currently engaged in is putting more and more stress and power into the tools that is creating. Instead of using the tools and constantly readjust them to create a good conditions for all of us who share this beautiful planet Earth, it seems like we are defending the existence of the tools themselves. So what we are offering is, in this model, is that we refocus our attention and ask ourselves what really matters in life. And these 5 entities emerged. Beings, and it's inviting us to take a broader look at the beings through people, animals, plants, even bacteria and viruses and blobs. So the whole ecosystem that exists on this planet Earth, and then societies within which all these different beings create a relationship with each other, and at the same time give each other an opportunity to grow. And this growth is accumulated in a global consciousness, which we could also call like a global wisdom and knowledge repository of everything we've learned throughout our different civilizational paradigms. And maybe, just maybe, we are reaching the level of awareness where we could start integrating this cross-civilizational knowledge and wisdoms and bring them forward as a very powerful tool for our future development. And of course, we cannot overlook the importance of land that holds us all, that gives us a space, a home within which we can activate ourselves, exist, and engage. And all that is, of course, then correlated. That's why relationships are the ones, one of this set of entities that I'm inviting everyone to think as the core elements for the future development of the society. And this is where different tools are manifested, and of course are subject of constant readjustment to satisfy the needs of all other entities. We do have a shared vision and core goals, which are inviting us to look at the planet Earth like astronauts are looking at it. They keep telling us that if we all went to the space and saw this beautiful planet Earth from the space, we would treat it completely differently than we do it now, when we are seeing just a partial, just parts of it. So yes, one of the goals is to create a global awareness and engagement that really takes Earth as an ecozone of our galaxy. At the same time, to through that develop the level of consciousness that is built on sustainability and the positive attitude towards the biodiversity that exists on this beautiful planet. And then with that intention and with that awareness, maybe start looking for a broader population of the universe. And more through different discussions in different circles, we see that something more will be needed in a repository of knowledge, some broader awareness for us to be able to do that. I don't believe we're going to travel with rockets and airplanes to, or any other devices of that kind to other planets, but there is sort of an excitement connected to possibility of the emergence of new physics, of something that we will understand again beyond just Einstein's relativity theory, something that will make us see beyond what we understand today and will bring more light into the relationship contact, which could potentially be the driving force of the new eco-civilization. So with that in mind, in the talks on communities and eco-civilization, we're zooming in to the society entity, and part of the whole picture on the society, we already discussed and sort of identified core elements that keep the society together, like shared values, shared rules, shared infrastructure, shared megatrends, shared vision, and of course associated explanations of it, like in shared values, what is something that eco-civilization will need in order to keep this collaborative spirit alive, like truth, love, trust, collaboration, and joy. But all of that is a subject of a discussion. Nothing has been put in the cement. It's all dynamic process, and that's why these discussions are so valuable, because they bring new insights, new understandings into what could potentially be our new shared destination. And at this point, let me then move on and just share what I saw as a concluding remarks from our first discussion. We try to keep it on a global level and try to learn how much have we learned, experienced, and already sensed as far as the communities is concerned on a global level, and what are the indicators that might suggest that there could be a time for civilizational paradigm as well. We took a look the whole experience from 4 different angles. What brings us together, what keeps us together, what drives the development, and what leads towards eco-civilization. So instead of going into a lot of details, because this will be enriched also by the discussions today, I'd just like to share one sort of picture that I draw as a summary what we've learned so far. No matter how much we try to keep everything on a global community discussion, all the time we were tapping into either local community level or even more into the personal community level, as a personal level. And really just realize that from this personal transformation, an incredible set of new global collaborative and co-creation type of frameworks are emerging. What came out on a personal level that impacts global community and the way how we perceive our existence in global community? Something that I'm sure we're going to explore stronger today, and Yuri already mentioned, which is our attitude towards identity. And it became very clear that identity, personal identity, or even small community identity will not disappear, because that brings the richness to the global community. That what creates a dynamic situations, dynamic processes that actually stimulate the innovation and stimulate our new views to who we are, what we are, and why we are here for. Very closely related to that are cultures on all different levels. And of course, it is needless to point out that even global communities are already searching for cultural identities, which are quite different than those that emerge from individual groups, families, and then later on different tribes and states, and as we know today, the local communities and regional communities. But they seek for the same kind of identifiers. And if we take a look at that a bit closer, we would see that that is very much related to new established language. What are the expressions that we use? What are the global language words that that brings us together and identifies us as a global community? We discussed a lot, of course, the new language that sustainable and communities are bringing to the global scene, or circular economy, which goes, of course, into all kinds of sustainable development, circular economy, sustainable communities, and so on. But this is just one aspect. What are other elements that are also emerging and contribute to global community? We are now we will start tapping into this and become more sensitive and see what else can we identify. Emotions and emotional reactions are something that are absolutely underestimated. And even when you connect and engage on the global community, these personal emotional frameworks within which people exist on the intimate level have a lot of impact on the way how global communities are formed as well. So try to dismiss emotions, and especially through digital forum, try to control them is probably one of those illusions that it's worth actually discussing, because many of the digital solutions try to eliminate emotions. However, at the same time, this is where the richness comes from. Again, brings authenticity and brings a very authentic relation of individuals with anything that they are engaged in, also on a global level. And of course, a very important element, which is trust. And based on the experiences of current sustainable communities that are emerging on a global scale, this is probably where everything comes together. It's trust. And creating principles and some sort of rules that allow full-scale transparency to be deployed is one of the key guarantees for successful cooperation within the global community. And that, of course, relates to new forms of organization, new trading or market relationships. And this one message that was very clearly coming through is that currently The only thing that really is well globalized is trade. And we have now this green agenda or attitude towards a Green Deal and climate change and all the consequences that come with it might present a new opportunity for a creation of a global community and global engagement. It was also very clear that there are three elements that have a strong impact on global community and cooperation and engagement. This is digitalization, urbanization, and of course, already the rules of globalization. And they impact on all levels, the communities, how they organize themselves on a global scale, and how do they set the goals. This intermediate element of local communities, whichever you call it, could be regional, but something that is in between personal and global. I called it the local community space. Also added additional flavor, which is reflected then on a global level as well. Especially these three key relationships that we engage ourselves around, which is human to nature, nature to society, and to human. And all three relationships are intertwined. However, when we look back and we focus again on these personal elements, we see that, of course, our perception of the world and the way how we engage is actually fueled by these personal values, even in the relationship models. We also identified storytelling or something that's been awakened from the old tribes traditions, and it's getting a new flavor, it's getting a new meaning in this global community sphere, because it brings together not only technical view, but also societal view, personal view, and it also has a historical threat in it. So it's used more and more also when bringing these global communities together. So let me stop at this point. The last thing I'd like to bring your attention to is that, of course, we started to identify a few elements that we could pay attention to more for the emergence of new eco-civilization, and that is new forms of natural state, laws and values of nature, new market culture, and ability to collaborate. What surprised me is that we all kind of felt very close to something that was said over and over again, is that in these global communities, that especially that are sustainable, with a sustainable nature and circular economy nature, the prevailing rule how to make decision is that do what feels right, because you are your own biggest judge. So you internally know always what is the right thing to do. Another area that's worth exploring further in the future. So thank you very much. This will be my part, and now I'm looking forward to all the wisdoms that will be shared in the next hour and so. Yuri, back to you.
Thank you very much, Violeta. It's kind of paradoxal that we are longing for even a stronger planetary consciousness as one important factor for the shift towards the next level of our human civilization, the level that we termed the eco-civilization during these debates. But the paradox lays in the fact that whenever we do that, when we want to attach closer to others across the planet, we first reach to our roots, to our territory to which we belong, to our immediate community. And we question and assess our relationships within our most immediate social environment, our communities. And we are a part of several communities as individuals, right? Bojan, you've been busy throughout your professional and personal life with the Slovenian community in Italy. You are a citizen of a very cosmopolitan port, where there are 22 nationalities, ethnic groups historically present, besides the Italian and the Slovenian one. May I ask you to tell your story? This is going to be a testimony, the first of the 3 testimonies of life. So Bojan, please, the word is yours.
Well, thank you. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Well, it's not just my story. I'll go a little bit back for some centuries, and I'm not so old to tell you just all the story from personal memory. It's a story which is full of, let me say, two main words, which are not very pleasant. One is hate, and the other one is fear. And I will try to explain you what exactly happened in this very strange place called Trieste.
Bojan, I apologize. I think we do not hear you very well. You're kind of silent. So if you can do something about it, we will all appreciate it.
Well, I'll try to do it. Well, do you hear me now?
It's better, yeah. If you just speak louder or closer to the mic, I think it will do.
This is the maximum I can do.
Okay, it's better. Thank you.
Well, I will have to explain about Trieste. Trieste is a very strange place. If you look at the map of Italy, if you have it in your eyes, you will see just at the top on the right side, it's a small tongue of land which goes out of this Alps arch, and that's Trieste. It's a small town, and everybody would ask, if you just have a look of this, what's this place doing there? It doesn't belong to this area. And here starts the history. Trieste was a small village 300 years ago. Fishery and something similar, limited trade, because all the trade in North Adriatic was monopolized by Venice, the Republic of Venice, and Trieste was inhabited mostly by Italians, while all the surroundings, also the parts which now are part of the town, were inhabited by Slovenes. And there were no clashes between these two communities for a very long time. What happened to change everything is about 300 years ago. It was 1719, if I well remember. Charles VI of Austria declared Trieste a free port. The empire want to have its harbor, and later on, the same century, Maria Theresia developed the harbor, which became the main harbor of empire. Trading overseas started at that moment. The America became important. A lot of people moved to America, and this state, this empire, was extremely large. It included, just to give you an idea, what today is Austria, Slovenia, Croatia, Hungary, Czechia, Slovakia, and large parts of Poland and Romania. Years ago, first time I was in New York, I visited the museum in Ellis Island, And this museum in Ellis Island, there in this museum is also a poster offering boat trips to America, starting from Trieste. But the poster is in Romanian language. So everybody who wanted to go to America from the empire had to come to Trieste, or most of them had to come to Trieste, even from very, very far, Poland to Romania, and so on. Was the origin of harbor. When the empire declared Trieste the main harbor, people started to come here from everywhere. Yuri mentioned 22 communities, but just to give you an approximate idea, Trieste still has, and it was built in last century, 2 centuries ago, in 19th century, the largest synagogue in Central Europe, the very large and rich Serbian Orthodox Church, the large Greek Orthodox Church, the smaller but very nice Protestant church in typical, German Protestant church in typical Gothic style, and small Anglican temple. This was the situation in late 19th century. And the huge development of Trieste was in 1857, when the railway Vienna to Trieste was built, the Südbahn, and this was the opening, really opening of the port of Trieste, and it became, let me call it, a city from being town just up to that moment. Very important, one of the most important cities of the empire. But you know, in the same time, in mid 19th century, political movements in the empire started. The empire was called, in a way, jail of nations, because there were many nations. I mentioned to you beforehand the geographical area covered by the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. And among these nations, there was the Italian one. And Italian nationalism grew up in Trieste because well, Trieste was an Italian place, and all people who moved to Trieste, in a way, accepted and adopted Italian as the working language and the basic culture and language of all these Greeks, Serbs, Romanian, also Turkish, and other nations who came to Trieste, but just for trading, not for doing other things, with the exception of Slovenes. Slovenes who settled all the area surrounding of Trieste first were used to be, let me say, servants and doing these lower jobs. But in the end of the 19th century, they started to grow up. For a lot of people went to school, a lot of people were very educated, they were lawyers, they were entrepreneurs, they opened companies, and among other, they were very important in managing the railway, the Südbahn. Almost all people employed at Südbahn were Slovenes. And they want to become citizens, but they didn't accept to become citizens as all the other, accepting Italian language and Italian culture. They wanted to keep their language and they want to keep also their culture. Up to that moment, there were no substantial problems of coexistence. Let me say, in first years in up to the end of the century and the beginning of 20th century, there was quite a normal situation, and there was enough money for everybody. And when you have enough money for everybody, you don't probably you don't mind uh, about other aspects. Uh, this is the historical situation up to the First World War. Then the war happened. And after the war, uh, Trieste passed to Italy. And this was the victory of the Italian nationalism. But Italy really didn't need Trieste. If you have in the mind the map of Italy, you will see that Italy had a lot of sea, a lot of ports, a lot of harbor, from Genova to Venice to Bari to Naples, Palermo, and so on. And this Trieste was very decentralized to serve any Italian economy and any Italian development. So it was just symbolic. And in the population of Trieste, according to the last census before the war, 1910 or 1911, 50% was population was Italian, about 25% was Slovene, and other 25% of other nations. But Italy didn't have any political will and any economic interest to develop Trieste. And so people were frustrated. A lot of companies closed, the port didn't work as usual. And as it happens in such cases, a foreign enemy was invented. And these were the Slovenes. So nationalism grew up, strongly motivated by fascism. Hate towards Slovenes was the most relevant political element of the regime. And after the Second World War, the situation was worse. I will not speak about the period about between two wars. Is a history. A lot of people died, a lot of people killed. It's a tragedy. And what I used to say, and I'm convinced it still was up to 20, 30 years ago, then people died, people moved, but before there was no one family in Trieste which hadn't suffered either during fascism, before the Second World War, or immediately after. So after the Second World War, the situation was even worse. Trieste was useless to Italy. It was on the border with Tito's Yugoslavia. To the hate towards Slovenes, fear of communism was added. The Slovenes were considered, in view of large part of local Italian population, some fifth column of the communist world. While in Trieste, with large number of Italian refugees from the territories given to Yugoslavia, the large majority of population for decades voted for Christian Democrat Party, which in Trieste was quite nationalistically oriented. Sorry, it was not easy to be Slovene in Trieste at that time. Situation started to change after the fall of communism, the dissolution of Yugoslavia, and the declaration of independence of Slovenia. Slovenes living in Trieste were not considered enemies anymore. It did not happen immediately. It was the process starting 30 years ago, and nowadays we can speak about certain normalization of relationship. Slovenes are now part of the society. Using Slovene language is not problematic, even in center of Trieste. There is certainly new legislation to support linguistic rights, but mainly the impact lies in the society. The fear of communism doesn't exist anymore, and the hate towards Slovenes almost disappeared. This is the situation nowadays. But it has to be added immediately that the economy is growing. The port of Trieste has become important not for Italy, but for the Central European area, its natural background, hinterland. Hinterland is the correct German term. It serves the area of the old Austrian Empire, including Germany. Recently, an agreement was reached with the port of Hamburg. The new Silk Way from China to Germany is shorter through Trieste than to North European ports. And the cooperation with Slovenia is active very well, very well. So we are not anymore enemies. So there is no hate, and there are no enemies, and there is no fear anymore. And now the question: have we reached a good level of what we can call eco-civilization? Maybe not yet, but we are certainly approaching good level of integration. So we are probably on the way. But yes, there is a but. Now the enemies are others. In last 20 years, many people moved to Trieste. Serbs during the Balkan Wars, Chinese as everywhere in Europe, Romanians, most of them are quite integrated. Then migrants have been crossing the border since years, coming from Middle East, from Pakistan, from Afghanistan. Now people are afraid of them. There are not many crimes in Trieste, but some events have been highlighted. And then is COVID-19, the pandemic, people are afraid of. Hate and fear still exist, just the targets is different. Insofar, to conclude, eco-civilization, integrated society of equal people, is not something we can achieve forever. It's a process. Evolution is the basic principle of the modern society. There are always new elements we need to keep in mind, being technological development or migration or pandemics, elements endangering the civilization. We are in the middle of this process. It's on us people to accept that we will always have to deal with changes using intelligence and active tolerance instead of fear and hate. So this is my first part of presentation. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Brian. I remember it was perhaps 20 years ago. We debated one evening in Trieste with some other people, and you gave an explanation about fear, about how the Italian population of Trieste felt fear from accepting the widespread use of Slovenian language in the city, which is quite paradoxal if you think that if anybody then that it would be the Slovenian community to feel kind of inhibited or if not suppressed. Initially, you mentioned fear with hatred as two very important elements in such a process. 20, 30 years ago, how strong and articulated was your vision for something that evolved and that you described as the present state? The spirit of collaboration and mutual understanding and recognition. How strong was your vision, and how, if you think back, did you believe in something like that? Are your expectations fulfilled?
Well, more than fulfilled. Well, I will tell you, in mid-70s of last century, I had the exam of journalism in Rome. We have to pass the exam to become journalist in Italy. It's a law. And the question I was given was what will happen in Yugoslavia after Tito will die? And my answer was nothing. It's a stabilized system. Well, it's a little bit different. They will evolve. The communism is not so dangerous as it's in Soviet Union. nothing will happen. You know, this was the feeling at the time. But I didn't, what I didn't understand, and I got aware of this very, very late after Slovenia declared independence, that people were really afraid for two reasons. First, because when we speak among us Slovene, those who don't understand are in a very delicate position. They don't know what are you speaking about. If you meet two Chinese speaking Chinese, and I imagine you don't speak Chinese very well, you don't know what they are speaking about. They could be speaking about you, and this is a huge disadvantage. So the Italian people in Trieste were disadvantaged from this point of view. And second, the fear was the communism, and everybody knew that in case of invasion from not Yugoslav invasion, but Soviet invasion, Trieste was not possible to be defended. Everybody now knew that the NATO strategy started on two rivers, Tagliamento and Piave, which are very far from Trieste. And this was what the people were afraid of. And we symbolize this possible enemy coming from the east. It took time for me to understand this, because at the beginning nobody spoke about fear. You know, but this was the really situation, and I imagine that one of the problems in such multilingual societies is that in most of the multilingual societies, unfortunately, those who are majority speaker do not understand enough the minority language, so they don't know about what they are speaking. So, and this could be a really psychological problem for the majority people.
Okay. Thank you for this explanation, and you also say it's not over. There are other enemies, so to say. We are today being very Eurocentric, but we should move now to the next port, to a beautiful city of Barcelona. Vincent Partal today represents VilaWeb, the key information source in Catalan on digital. Is there hatred, or is there fear that drives that defines the distance between Catalonia and Madrid, or is there more? Please, the word is yours. The word is yours, Vicente. But you have to unmute yourself, please. You are still muted.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Hello. Thank you for inviting me. The main question now in the relationship between Catalonia and Spain, is the violence of the state, the violence of the repression on the state, on the democratic movement in Catalonia. As you know, there is part of the government of Catalonia in prison. The president of the parliament is in prison. The president itself is in exile. So it's a very difficult situation. My guess is that in the society there is not feelings in Catalonia. There are no feelings of strong division, of conflict. People recognize one to each another the right to decide, or the right to make the decision through the vote. The problem now is much more on the side of the Spanish nationalism, and especially on the fact that current Spanish state, in fact, is an evolution of the Franco regime, but it's not a change. Spain is the only country in Europe that doesn't make a revolution, that doesn't end with the fascism or with the communism. And so you have this deep state, mainly the judiciary power and the police, the central police, the Spanish police, that, well, they play a different game even than the government itself. And they have their plans, their rules, and they are creating a very difficult situation for us. But if you allow me, for the sake of the
Please,
debate, I would like
yes,
very much a broader approach.
yes, yes, of course, of
I'm
course.
open to I'm open to discuss about Catalonia as much as you want, of course. But I think it's when I was reading your materials, I was very interested because a lot of things you are talking as part of my debating with myself through my life. So I would like to introduce some concepts that I think are relevant in Catalonia
Absolutely.
or anywhere in the world. When Violeta was talking about this new civilization and the introductory remarks, I think we ourselves are the testimony of this, because our life is absolutely different of the life we had when we were born. I was born in a teeny town close to Valencia, and by the time I was born, everyone in the town speak Catalan, although it was forbidden officially by the Franco regime, but it was the only language in the town. Everyone was a Roman Catholic. Most of the people live in the same house that their parents or grandparents were living. There were no TV, no phones, almost. But today, I'm using several languages every day in my daily job. My younger daughter is living in Taiwan, and she speaks Chinese, with something absolutely unexpected to me. I have friends all over, and in my town there is people from several faiths, from several languages, from several backgrounds, etc. So I think it is real, it is happening, and it is happening not just because a political design, but because our life is doing it happen. The fact, for instance, one of the most perfect programs of the European Union is the Erasmus project, meaning that there is couples that are, you know, the joke, and if you allow me, the joke is that Erasmus project is a way to find an Italian boyfriend in any country of Europe. So you have, you are able to meet people from different countries and to create a new kind of European European feeling, because your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your friends are not just the ones in your little town, but in a broader space. So I think this is relevant, and this is important, mostly because it is happening at the right time. Because for the first time, due basically to the climate crisis, we need a global conscience. Maybe in the past we could avoid a global conscience, but now it's absolutely imperative to create this global conscience, because the volume of the problem is so big that only can be tackled through a global action. And for the global action to be good, you need global perspectives, and the global perspectives, as much as the people are being created through their lives, their own lives, through their feelings, through their relationships, that are much more stronger than anything governments and states can create. So in this scenario, identity is something really relevant and really important from two different perspectives. One, my impression is that you cannot be a global citizen without any roots. You need roots. And from these roots, you can become a global citizen, and you can make decisions that are not that are based in something really strong on inside you, in your community, and at a global scale. this kind of so-called globalists that reject any identity, in fact, the only thing they are doing is hiding their identity. And this is not working at the end, because sometimes something happens that your identity comes and erupts, and it's being present. For me, what is worrying me is that at this moment we are watching identity as a problem. The debate between the Muslim world and the Western world, the national problems all across the world, etc. We have this idea that identity is creating problems. And I think the only way to advance is moving, removing the obstacles and moving identity from being a problem to being a celebration. From being a question that creates problems to all of us, for establishing identity, own identity of each one as a celebration of our diversity. And this is the only way we can tackle the problem and remove the obstacles, meaning that make the life of people comfortable. Bojan was talking about fear. It's not possible to live in a world of fear. We cannot achieve a global conscience if part of the world is living in fear and avoiding confrontation and polarization. And the most striking thing to me is that we are doing it. I'm very positive on this. Take a look at that. Today we can change our religion. I was born as a Roman Catholic. I can be a Muslim today, or a Jewish, or a Buddhist, and no one will care about this. No one will prosecute me for this. It's not so many time ago that that was impossible. More even, I can change my gender. I was born as a boy. I can be a woman if I want, even legally speaking in some countries. This is a great evolution. We are removing these obstacles in some aspects, very intimate aspects of our identity. So the question is, why can I change my religion, my gender, but not my passport? How this makes sense? And I think this is one of the key questions that we must confront. Of course, my answer is that this is because the international society have not the tools to remove these obstacles. We are still today talking, the debate is based in concepts that are extremely old. We are still in the Westphalian discussions about the nation state, about borders, about all this kind of things, the political heritage. The tools we are using to deal with the problem of identities that want to be recognized in order to have a better life. These tools are out of time. And we need to remove these tools and to establish a method to solve these questions. There is two big tools that international society put in place. One is the right to self-determination. The other one is the end of colonial rules. But both of them are traps. Self-determination, everyone agrees that the countries, nations have the right to self-determination, but nobody agrees who is the subject of the self-determination. So it's useless. I have the right, in theory, to the self-determination, but when I, as a Catalan, want to exercise the self-determination, then I have not this right. So I have a right that I cannot exercise because the states, in this case, the Spanish state and the European Union, are against my right. And also the rule of the end of the colony was an intent to create an end of story narrative. The United Nations recognized that the colonial world must be dismantled, but at the same time create a list of who is the subject of this, which country can be decolonized and which one no. Of course, the reality is much more difficult than this. Using this list of colonies, Slovenia, for instance, cannot be independent today because Slovenia was not on the list. As much of the countries that became independent the last 25 years were not in this fake list. So to me, the important question is, okay, we are moving on one side to a global world, but in the other side, in order to be successful in this drive for a globalization, we need to have the tools to avoid problems in all levels, in all the levels, local level, national level, etc. And there is any way to do this? My only answer, and it's that democracy must be the only method. That regardless to discuss about, let's say, essential things like what is a nation, who has the right to, what conditions means allow a population to be recognized as a nation, etc. The only method is the will of the population. And to establish a method to solve the conflicts through the will of the population, let people vote, let people agree, let people negotiate. In some cases, people will need their own state. That's good. In some cases, people will need not their own state, but a recognition as a national minority inside the state. This is good. In most cases, people will ask just for cultural rights. This is good. The problem is that when you block when you block the will of a population, like it's happening today in Catalonia, then you are creating a conflict where there must be not a conflict, but a celebration of the diversity. If we agree on that democracy is the way to do it, we must agree on several things that are important too. For instance, that this is a dynamic concept, and I think in your papers you talk a lot about this dynamic idea of politics, of organization. Because what we today identify as a nation, maybe tomorrow we will not be. I have a lot of friends in London, and all the time I say, London is England, really? Are you sure of this? Or London is something that must be sort of independent, sort of self-rule, sort of anything different. So, and if I can explain that, I want to talk a little about Hong Kong, because in my view, Hong Kong is the place today in the world where there is much more at stake, where there is the cradle of this new world. I was, my first time in Hong Kong was in 1989. I was working at that time in Beijing during the Tiananmen Square massacre. And when I leave China, my plane went to Hong Kong. As you can imagine, I was shocked, I was upset, I was everything you can imagine. I went to Hong Kong, I spent a couple of days, 3 days in Hong Kong, just trying to relax, but at the same time trying to understand what was happening in Beijing and in Hong Kong, because I was extremely surprised. At that time, Hong Kong was a British colony. And the people I met, they want to become Chinese. And I was surprised because I just came from a city where the army was killing the citizens. And I cannot understand why you want to be part of this. Why are you obsessed on becoming Chinese if China is doing this kind of things? At that time, Jonathan Fenby was the editor-chief of South China Morning Post, the big newspaper, English newspaper language in Hong Kong. And Jonathan, later we became good friends. Jonathan explained me why. And it was so easy to understand. He said, they want to be part of China because they are Chinese. Regardless what is doing China, they are Chinese. So they want to be part of China. My last time in Hong Kong was last year, before the pandemic, in October '89. And to my surprise, I was monitoring very much what's happening in Hong Kong, especially since '94, the Umbrella Revolution. But my surprise was that people that I remember, they wanted to be Chinese under the British rule, now want independent Hong Kong. And of course, young people, most of the young people in Hong Kong want to create an independent Hong Kong. Why? Because this is the guarantee for them. And they are building a new, even a new identity, even cultural identity. For instance, I was shocked when walking on the street, I saw posters in a language I cannot recognize. As you know, Chinese language doesn't exist really. It's a group of languages that all of them are written with the same characters.
Script,
so
yes.
it's the same script. Yeah, people can read Chinese. People don't speak Chinese, can read Chinese. So I saw posters in Hong Kong in Latin characters, in Latin script, but in a language I cannot recognize, but at the same time so familiar to me. What was that? Well, young people begin to use Cantonese writing in Latin script. Why? Because this was the language of protest. Mainland Chinese trying to speak Mandarin, and Cantonese is the language of course, Canton and Hong Kong. So they transliterate Cantonese in Latin characters, so they create a new language that reflects the identity of the city and that was a barrier against the mainland Chinese. So that was fantastic to me. I was so surprised. They are from a political concept. They want to be an independent city because they want to defend their liberties. They even begin to create a cultural independence that doesn't exist before. What is happening now there is terrible. The world is allowing China to repress the Hong Kong society. But at the same time, it's not only horrible, but it is a reflection of how dangerous the system is becoming, how inefficient is becoming. And very close to Hong Kong, we have a very good example also, which is Taiwan. When the pandemic starts, Taiwan government was the first government in the world identifying the source of the pandemic, being knowing how dangerous it was, and taking the right measures to stop it. In fact, still today, Taiwan and Vietnam are the two countries in the world that are better managing the pandemic. Taiwan is not recognized by most of the international society, is not part of the United Nations, so is not part of the health organization, of the World Health Organization. When Taiwan went to the World Health Organization saying, hey guys, something really dangerous is happening in Wuhan, and we know what is happening, and this is what you must do quickly. The reaction of the World Health Organization was not accepting the debate because this is not a state. So what's crazy? Because in order to keep alive the appearance of the global society, we were condemning ourselves to ignorance. And this is criminal. And this headlines how bad is the situation that we have today. The question is, won't the international community fix it or not? Do the international community understand that the old Westphalian rule, where there is the nation state and the nation state were the only subjects of the international arena, is out or not? And if the international community, and I think countries like Slovenia, for instance, have a measure can do very good things on this scenario. In the international community understands that the reality is so different, how to create the environment, the tools that allow the world to work in an efficient way, both for the international community, for instance, avoiding the problem of Taiwan with the World Health Organization, both for any community in the world that will have a path to sovereignty, a path recognized by everyone on how to become what they want to become, regardless what is this. And again, we did it. After the World War I, Europe made a terrible decision that was not to fix the conditions that creates World War I. So World War II was inevitable. After World War II, Europe decided to stop this and fix it. And the founding fathers of the European Union say there will be never again a war between France and Germany. Done. That's fixing the problem. We can discuss if the European Union is the best possible, if it's good in doing several things. We can discuss a lot, but the basic thing is fixed. There will be never again a war between Germany and France. We are sure of that. So in the other side, in a different way, Japan was fixed also by the rule of the Americans. We can discuss if that was fair or not, but Japan never will be again what it was in the past. So the international community demonstrates in the past that if they want, they can fix the problems. We have any kind of problem, regardless how difficult this problem is. What we need now is to identify the tools that allow the international community and the communities to fix this kind of problems once and forever. And that every community, and it is not a problem if it is Catalonia, if it is London, or if it is a neighborhood of any place in the world, or if it is Somaliland, for instance, which is another example of bad behavior of the international community with a country that is doing very good. If we establish this path, then we can really achieve this goal of moving identity from problem to celebration. And that's extremely important. Just to finish, that is, by the way, something that I think when Violeta talk about rules of globalization, we need this rule of globalization, and that is one of the rules of the must be one of the rules of the globalization. How any given community can achieve their goal in a democratic way without the interference of the others. And just to finish, there is a good example on the internet. Because when you talk about these things, most people, especially in consolidated states, they say, well, but this will be a chaos. We will have a world with 5,000 states. This is a joke. This is not real. And we have the proof of this. I was involved some years ago on the fight for a domain name in the internet for Catalans. And we went to ICANN and asked them for creating a new set of domains, 3-letter domains, .cat in our case, that represents not the states that have a 2-letter domain, but the cultures. And our motto was, we want to move the discussion from passport to dictionary. And ICANN understood that and allow Catalans to have the 3-letter domain. Was the first time in the world that we have this 3-letter domain. When that happens, the discussion inside the ICANN, which is the organization that take care of the domains in the internet, was the chaos. How many domains we will have in 10 years? How many people will want to have their own domain? This is the chaos. Well, 10 years have passed now, and there is 10 cases, just 10. There is Catalonia, Brittany, Corse, Kurdistan, Quebec, Flanders, the Basques, the Galicians, and Brussels city, which is very interesting. 10. So the theory of the chaos is not real theory, because you need the will, but you need that will must be a majority will in a society, a sustained will all the time. And you need resources to do it. It's not everyone in the world will have their own state. We don't need that. But if we don't create these rules of globalization on identity, meaning the path to allow a good life for communities, regardless the final decision on how this good life translate in order to be a state or not, etc. If we don't have that, we are putting the whole world in a risk. That is where we are now, because this is a risk for all. If the answer to Hong Kong is violence, this is a risk for everyone. If the answer to the Catalan demands and to the democracy in Catalonia is violence, this is a risk for the European Union, not for Spain, for all the European Union. And if we don't want to talk with Somaliland, regardless the fact that Somaliland is the only democratic and stable country in the Horn of Africa, this is a risk for the whole community, for the whole world. And if the World Organization of Health doesn't want to talk with Taiwan, regardless they know very well what is happening in Wuhan, this is a risk for everyone. So to me, this discussion on identities, which I think is very relevant, as you can imagine, of course, needs to be translated into tools. We need to create a set of tools that allow to deal with this problem, because this is a real problem, and to transform this problem from a problem to a celebration of our diversity, which is a basic condition to create a global identity. And I'm sorry if I'm not talking so much about Catalonia, but maybe we can talk later.
Thank you very much. This was really, I think, very comprehensive and revelatory. If I may just briefly reflect before passing to Natasha, you are a strong believer in a democratic process, which should be the bedrock of such a toolkit, as you mentioned. And identities are factual; they are real. So identity is reality, and identity is in a way is the truth. If we don't recognize, for example, the as you said, the Somaliland, we look away. If we don't recognize the Taiwanese factual experience with the pandemic, we cannot deal with the pandemic and so forth. And obviously, such a democratic, democracy-based toolkit can be the vehicle to overcome the boundaries of the nation state, and also save the nation state in some way. This is how I would reflect to the question of the nation state. I can only imagine what it means, what kind of a challenge this sets to the European Union, to the United States. Today, of course, our thoughts are quite concentrated on the election outcome, and the identities have a great deal to say about the current dynamics and perhaps the outcome of these elections, or to other multi-ethnic states around the world, from China to India and others, of course. So do you agree with such a reflection on the nation states, on the nation state and the challenges for, let's say, the European Union and the United States?
Yeah. In fact, what is happening is that we are trying to defend a tool, the nation state, that was okay for some period of time, but in some situations, it is not already functioning. Take the case of Somalia and Somaliland. The international community is recognizing the government of Somalia in Mogadishu. Come on, there is no government in Mogadishu. It's not an existing and functional government in Somalia. It's a chaos. But they don't want to recognize the government in Somaliland. even if the government in Somaliland is providing a stability to the region. So why this obsession on the, once you have your flag in the United Nations, you are in the group A, you are the good one, and if you don't have the flag in the United Nations, you are not allowed to have any kind of participation in the world affairs. To me, this is the most extreme concept. And we are moving to a society, to a world where nothing is absolute. The two examples I gave before, the religion and the gender, to me, to understand that if I want, I can become a woman, that goes against all my concepts, against everything I learned when I was a child. But it is real. So if something so difficult as it is can be changed, why not we can accept that the idea of the state, the nation state, can work in several places, is not working in other places, and in any case, in a global scale, need to be fixed with an alternative, with a path of discussion. And that doesn't imply that everyone want to become a new state. I'm not implying that. There will be cases, for instance, it's the case of Catalonia, where most of the population realize that if we don't have our own state, we are at risk. And that's the reason why we want our own state. But if the behavior of Spain was different, maybe that will be different. You have places, Switzerland, for instance, you have 4 different languages, 4 different cultures, and no one discussed they are a single nation state. So it's not to call for a path to statehood doesn't mean that everyone must run this path. Mean that you are easing the problem, because the real problem today is that the only reaction we have seen is violence in Hong Kong, in Catalonia, in Somalia, in Taiwan. So every time someone tried to say, hey, we want to have our community feel that we deserve the same tools you have in order to progress. If the reaction to this is violence alone, then we are creating a problem. We are creating a risk. But who is creating the risk? Are Catalans creating the risk? We only wanted to vote on 1st of October 2017. We have the right to vote. We decided to call for a vote, and the vote was disrupted by the Spanish police with violence, and we have 3 years already of violence over our society because they don't want us to allow to vote. And we wanted to vote in order to know if the majority of Catalans want to have an independent state or not, because that is the basic concept. We don't know yet if the majority of the Catalans want an independent state. We can believe that because in the elections, in the parliament, for 3 times already, the majority of the votes goes to the pro-independence parties. But we need to check that in real terms, and this is through a referendum. And when Catalonia decided to call for a referendum, the reaction was violence. Avoiding what? Avoiding the knowledge of where we are now. So something that can start a discussion if the Catalans realize that we have the majority of votes for independence, then what we must do is to open discussions with Spain and with the European Union on how to fix it, how to create this situation. It's not an automatic proclamation of independence, something like this. It's a path to discussion. But if the reaction from the state is just violence, then what is creating the instability inside the European Union is Spain, is not Catalonia. And this is the problem the world needs to fix, because there is so many cases that can we accept the genocide of the Uyghur people in China without doing nothing? Is that right? can we accept, if you take a look of the situations in the world, most of the conflicts comes from the fact that there is not a method to recognize first, there is a community there. Second, this community must have the right to negotiate its future, not to impose its future, but to negotiate its future. And what you cannot do is to suppress this community, because then you have a conflict. And this is what history teaches us. The conflict came when you try to suppress by violence the will of the population.
Vincent, thank you again. This is really very revelatory. And you know, for somebody who was just out of his teens when Slovenia decided to be independent, it comes very natural that democratic will should drive such processes. And not nationalism, for example. I have always been very convinced of let's say of the Slovenian independence out of the democratic will that was expressed in a referendum very strongly, and not out of nationalist emotions, perhaps. I think you gave us a very good standpoint and very elaborated one as well. I would like to pass on to the third city, and I would like to, and I'm sure we will be able to debate later. Above all, Natasha, I apologize to you, because we are taking this debate in such a masculine mode. I mean, the only, I mean, thankfully, Violeta had a word. We are hosting you, but you come last to speak. And but I tried to fix this little technical problem, so I will share, if you allow me, I will share the screen, because obviously you've got a new computer which does not allow for your for your camera to
not
be,
this one.
but this is how you don't like this picture. Well, I think it's a nice one. So we've been to Trieste, we've been to Barcelona and a little bit to Valencia and Beijing and Hong Kong and other places where Vincent took us. And now we are in Novi Sad. Novi Sad is a port. It's a port on the river. It has a beautiful beach as well. And it's also a multi-ethnic city. And you speak Hungarian just as well as Serbian. And you're an entrepreneur, and you've been working with minority media and communities for very many years. I would like you to share your experience, and your background is in philosophy. So I'm sure you're going to share your experience of your beautiful city and Vojvodina and Serbia, who's been through metamorphoses and not easy ones. Perhaps you will share them in a rather synthetic way, because I'm sure you've always been reflective. So I'm sure your contribution will be in a way also some kind of a reflection to what we have heard by Bojan and Vicent. Please, Natasha.
Yeah, thank you very much for this invitation and the chance to talk about this eco-civilization. I was really deeply surprised when I got these papers, and when I was reading about the idea, and I think it's brilliant, and really big congrats for that. And actually I was seeking for that moment, and to get in this dialogue, because first of all, we have to name the things, and then they are becoming vivid. They are becoming live. And actually, I was deciding to go on that on that way, I will share this the document.
You want to share a slide? You want to share a slide?
Yeah.
So then I will stop sharing and you
Yeah.
take over.
So actually, I will start with philosophy, and it was inspiring me on that way that that we should go to the basic phenomena of the human being, and I was immediately turning back to the lectures from professor philosopher Fink, who is this phenomenologist. And when I was reading few of these lectures and reading it on the way to talk to you today, it was really shocking that the lessons he was having and giving to the students during 60s and beginning of 70s in last centuries, they are so actual to the our point of living today. And actually I would like to remind all of you and all of us that now when we are in this pandemic situation, and we were thinking last year in this very day, everybody thought that everything will be as planned, and we are facing completely new reality, and we are actually needing that some facts which we are not thinking about them as questions, we are putting it in the questions, and that's that's the philosophy starts actually in this moment. And I would like to say that reality is not an independent object in the world, and this is not away from people as subjects, and society is a symbolic reality with people living in, and they are giving her a meaning. So that's the point of this methodology of the phenomenologists, and that's why I'm completely agree with all this concept of the eco-civilization. I would go further to explain and to put it, let's say, down to the life, to the landscape we are surrounded. We are surrounded with linguistic landscapes everywhere. So all the whatever we can see in one city, in one state, this is how we are making our identity. And in Vojvodina, we are having 26 national communities. We are having 6 official languages. So everywhere in Novi Sad, you can see on the main institutions of the city, you can see everything written in 6 languages, and this is big advantage of this city. The people are aware that other identities, other values, other cultures are living around them, and this is probably the reason why Novi Sad became and got this focus on itself as a European city of culture. This is not going to be next year. Unfortunately, it was moved for the year after. So in 2022, because of this pandemic situation, and so we gained one more year for the preparation for this, and this is for sure going to change the identity of the people who are living in, because even this Serbia at this moment is let's say not not the state. We can be very much proud on it, but on one way. But on the other way, this is something. It's a big privilege to get this possibility to have the city, which is for 1 year, it is a spot of the culture to all other European cities. And I'm going for more than that, because I'm about to talk with all of you about all these thoughts. That I agree with Violetta. I was carefully listening this presentation of Ecocivilisation, that that identities are changeable, and everything is changeable, even the values, even the culture, even the languages are changing, and they are and the states are changing, and when and Boyan and Vicent and even Yuri, you are completely having the memories from Yugoslavia. I'm, by my first identity, I'm saying that I'm Yugoslavian and I'm Vojvodinian, and then I'm Serbian and Hungarian, whatever. You know, that to think that national states will last forever as a model, who knows why it should last forever? Nothing will last forever. The things were changing in the evolution in civilization. I mean, so that's just the possibility that we are doing something new, and hopefully we are creating now something else. We have to give to name the things precisely. That's very important when we are talking precisely, and then on that way we are creating a new reality. So this would be actually the fastest I could make for myself, and I'm interested about your opinion, and I will put it away now. This
Okay. So
yeah.
I can put back your picture then.
Okay.
Okay. Right. But could you maybe be very practical? Novi Sad and Vojvodina went through some metamorphosis alongside the metamorphosis of the former Yugoslavia, of Serbia in the last quarter of a century or more. And how do you see the evolution of identities in your city, in your region? Has this been exacerbated? Has this been overrun? Has this had a revival? And I mean, what is your experience with that from your own, through your own eyes?
Yeah, so yes, definitely Novi Sad changed, and this is normal because the city is now already with all agglomeration is about 400,000 people living in. Mm-hmm. And actually for all Vojvodina, we had one big movement. It was after this last wars. Actually, the people from Bosnia, Croatia, most of from that side,
yes,
Serbs from that parts were moved mostly in Vojvodina, and we are different people. I mean, that's just the easiest to understand that Vojvodina is a plain. and Bosnia and Croatia mostly are mountains. So this is, people are different in this different anthropologically they are different.
Yes.
And it was the way that actually Serbia is keeping Vojvodina in the uh, within the borders, because Vojvodina was actually ready to go away on the same way as Slovenia, as Croatia, and everybody wanted to go out from this not successful way, because I deeply think that Yugoslavia was the brilliant idea, and it was kept, let's say, well, on many levels now. When we are watching back, it was uh, mostly good. Of course, that some people were not feeling well and not having the way of living they imagined, but I can say that we can say that it was a good idea. After this nationalism Serbian nationalists raised up, so it was, people were not about to be a part of that. So on that way, it changed a lot. So really that people from Bosnia and Croatia, they brought their other way of living, their other values, their other culture of this simply everyday life. So it was really, and this is this exists, this fight between the, let's say, domestic people and the people who came from other parts. So, and this is that inner fight still exists. But on the other side, how the time is passing, so it was also happened on some other way after the Second World War, and the people became, so this Novi Sad also is a strong city, let's say, and having the own culture, and just takes some time and needs some time that the people are getting this to understand. And when we are having the first generation of the people who came in the city, they are giving a birth to their kids, and that kids are becoming the people of Novi Sad. So what you can say, they are born, and they are so in the second generation is already getting this culture of the Novi Sad, and Novi Sad is very proud city on their culture and on all this what they succeed, because it was bought the freedom of Novi Sad from the monarchy, from Austria.
So apologies. Yeah, apologies on that. So you just to ask a question, is it? Can you say that two things? I see Vojvodina and Novi Sad as a laboratory of multiple identities, and the identity that may have been overlooked maybe throughout the past 20, 30 years was the regional identity as well, right? That you kind of underlined in this in your speech. Secondly, I understand that the phenomenon of Yugoslavia became obsolete as it eventually finished in violence due to the reasons that Vicent described before, the lack of the failure to recognize multiple identities and their expression in a democratic process. There was no toolkit, there was no recognition and it ended as it ended. But so these are just confirmatory questions. But my third question is, if I understand right, do you see the phenomenon of immigrants? Let's say you described the genesis of Serbian immigration from other territories to Vojvodina. Do you see the next generation of immigrants undertaking traditions, habits, culture of their new homeland?
Yeah, I will start from this third one, and hopefully I will remember the previous. And actually, what is the seek to be done for the new generations of let's say immigrants, but not immigrants. They are not immigrants. The importance to understand that many different people are living in this place. So, and that this is not the only Serbian land, because it's a land of many other nations and many other languages. And this is, first of all, to be understood. And the people are actually, how the time is passing, they are understanding, and they are having the possibility to see on the traffic, the Magyar Szó, the daily newspaper in Hungarian. Even they don't know what does it mean, but they are seeing it every day. And the other languages also, because it is very strong minority media landscape in Vojvodina. And I would like to mention actually that from our last conference, we are having keeping it every year in November, and this is European conference devoted to minority and local media. Based on this innovation in media, what German and Danish majority and minority newspapers did, and they are still doing, that they are having the full cooperation among themselves. We started just last month in October with one independent weekly newspaper, Vreme, the Time. We started the special edition. I'm actually editor of it. The minority societies in Serbia, to show them to the people, to majority and to other minorities as well. So it goes in Serbian and in the language we are talking. That's the same text, and they are really one page is Serbian, the other page is Ruthenian. For example, we started with Ruthenian, and with the aim to avoid this folklore background as the first what comes up to stereotypes about the minorities, who is good, who is not, and actually to show the simple life what everybody has, and to show the people who are influent in their societies, who are influent even in majority societies, and to understand that they are living among all of us. I mean, so that's the point of it, and I hope that we will have even it was funded by the Ministry of Culture and Information of Republic of Serbia. So this is something important to say, that just to know that what is the in this very moment what is happening.
Right. Okay. Thank you for this. And shall we open the floor to some questions? I think we've been very comprehensive, but I cannot say we were complete. some there are questions out there. Please, anyone? Rajni, I can see you. Do you have a question?
Hi.
You can switch off, Yuri, you can switch off this slide.
Okay. If you say so.
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you so much. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes,
Am I
yes,
audible?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes.
my question to all three panelists, and I don't think this is very easy question to answer, but still I would love to understand, would love to have your opinion and perspective about it. So like just now we had a presentation about linguistic and cultural identities in communities, and a wonderful presentation has been given by Natasha. I want to understand on one hand, we find that cultural and linguistic diversities are pillars of biodiversity on one hand. On the other hand, we feel that the kind of rigidities we have built around us, around our belief system, around our identities, are posing some sort of challenge as well. How do you think in the process of eco-civilization, building eco-civilization, we can deal with this challenge?
This goes to Natasha first, right? And then to
I mean, whosoever feels like
Okay.
answering it, yeah.
Okay. Who would like to go first?
If you want, I can go first.
Please, 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 please go.
Please, sir. Yeah.
Now, in my opinion, the drive to a global civilization and the solution of the local problems, let's explain it as local problems, as the two sides of the same coin. In the past, in this past where I was born, the reach of my knowledge was very few kilometers away. I was interested in things happening very few kilometers away. My family was interested in things happening very few kilometers away. Today, most of us, a substantial portion of our societies, is interested in the global scale. Everyone is today following what happened in the United States, for instance. So the change we are experiencing in our lives have moved us to a global conscience, and we are becoming more and more aware that all problems are interconnected, and we will only reach a stable global civilization free of risk if we create the tools that allow no risk at a local level. Because if not, every situation in local level will present a risk for the global society. And so to me, it's two sides of the same problem. In order to have a stable drive for a global civilization, we need to avoid risk at the local levels. And this is what, in my opinion, makes relevant to create a set of tools that every player in the global scale recognize as a fair tools that allow a democratic resolution of the conflicts, or at least that diminish the number of cases that can present a serious problem to the global society, because every local problem, in fact, can become very fast a global problem.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Boyan, maybe?
Example of how we could do things globally and not to lose our own small identity. It was very difficult and very complex building this union, but the fact that we can speak languages, different languages in the European Parliament, and the local heritage is everywhere protected, and European Union funds protection of local heritage monument, also cultural events which are completely different. Imagine what have in common one Portuguese and one Finnish? Practically nothing, but the fact that they belong to European Union, but they eat different things, they wake in different hours, they work, they have completely different jobs. If you consider the traditional jobs, they eat different food, they drink different beverage, but they belong to an European Union, and this is a way to globalize things while respecting the identity of everybody, which could be a state nation, but which would be a small community, which would be a small village. Because every village, I speak about Europe, is proud of something they have: a small monument, characteristic, a forest, river, something they are proud of. And if we allow these people and fund these people to keep their identity, they will be very happy to enter the global world and to globalize themselves with the modern technology, with the modern time of living. Things we can do now much better, just because you have the new technologies and you have computers and you have mobile phones, but you can keep your heritage also with mobile phones.
Thank you, sir.
Natasha, any further comment?
Yeah, I can mostly agree with Boyan and with Vicent, and I would add that actually this idea of European Union is first of all the peace process, and that's I think the most important idea, how it was based on. And yes, that's important that that people can speak in the parliament on their own mother tongues. And I just have to tell you that we are having this this practice in Vojvodinian parliament. So every speech and every talks, and when assembly is when assembly is live, then everything is translated in 6 languages. So that's we can actually a lot. We are having already a lot in the idea of European Union, and just have to understand that really is the focus of on the person, on the emotions. How Violetta was saying, this is we are just human beings. First of all, we are not just the workers. We are not just we are having this life to live and to enjoy the life and to create the life, you know. And yes, it is important the moment to say that I was writing somewhere this: do what feels right. Yeah, that's important. And really that this simple and basic human values should be highlighted in the new way of society. I wouldn't say that this is not modern. This is always modern, and this is always should be on, because the black and white side of the world is always in the run, you know. And I think that many people became conscious, you know, and just it's this critical mass should be on when these not good students are still riding these rules of this world. I am believing in the good students.
Okay, Natasha. I believe there are more questions, but I would like to pass this point to Violeta for some conclusions. I think Violeta has been listening very attentively, and I'm longing to hear her reflections, please.
Thank you very much, Yuri. Thank you to all of you for this incredible discussion. Just proves how much more we need to broaden our perspective in order to start searching for really good long-term solutions. I certainly hope that we will continue to stay in touch and explore this topic even further. But I try to put some conclusions together. I'm not sure if you're gonna completely agree with them, but I made like 4 pages of notes and then quickly made 1 pager of those key messages that really touched me. And I can already see how important they're gonna resonate, how important they're gonna be and resonate with the future development of the concepts for eco-civilization. So first message, local communities are very sensitive for different influences. And these different influences can come from everywhere. Political priorities or movements, immigration, diversity like religion, culture, national diversities, languages, then different conflicts, historical memory, fear and hate, attitude of majority groups, attitude of formal structures that communities belong to, like deep state and similar, and predictable shocks that come like with pandemia or climate change and similar. So all that are constant impulses that sort of irritate the communities. So these communities need something very reliable to have as a point of reference to actually be able to organize themselves around it. And if I understood today's speakers well, somehow they all agree that identity is something that actually helps communities to reorganize itself over and over again when these different impulses are touching them. And it's true. I mean, if we look our own lives, we all went in our lifetimes through some huge changes. I often shared with my political friends in Europe the story of my grandmother. This is the side information, but just to prove how important this point is. My grandmother, in her lifetime, she died when she was 84. She changed 7 countries, different languages, currencies, flags, and she never moved from her farm. Mm. So that's what Europe is. And but she had her identity. She knew who she was, and that kept her going, that she was able to absorb and readjust all these changes. So yes, indeed, we need to preserve awareness and focus on this identity from a problem to a celebrity. I think this was such a powerful message being repeated over and over again by this. Indeed, I think that we have evolved as species, regardless of the situations that we see around us. And if you are very truthful to yourself, think to which period of human history you want to move back to. I don't want to go 10 years back, seriously, because we really evolved. I mean, the fact that we can talk so openly about the most pressing issues, the most controversial issues, and as Vincent pointed out, you know, you can change religion, you can change sex, you can basically change your life over and over again, and that is something that society can accept. It's not going to be easy for you always, but it is becoming acceptable. That was impossible in the past. So that's why I think we should unite and you know, make some efforts to develop these tools, to give really people and communities a chance to be able to readjust and to be able to exercise what they believe is their inner calling. And I fully agree with the message that democracy is probably currently the most powerful method to be used. But I think it needs to be revived. I think even democracy as we know it today is missing the tools for peaceful transformation within this communities that sometimes the community expresses the need for. Like we have this on an individual level, when we can change our sex, when we can move from one country to another, where we can remodel our house if you want, or even remarry or change our cultural framework. And I think the message that came through on identities are changeable, even values and cultures and languages and states and borders. I mean, we've all seen it. I mean, the country I was born in doesn't exist anymore. And that was also my favorite statement on an EU level with our colleagues when they started to complain or you know, could not grasp the speed of the changes that the EU went through. I said, look, you know, my country doesn't exist anymore, and I'm a European Commissioner for Transport. Can you imagine? You know, this is the speed of change that is happening. So, and the message is also the national states do not last forever, and they will not last forever. And in the past, all these changes of countries were subject to wars. You know, EU is this peaceful project that tries to overcome the need for war and offers democratic tools where different countries can find the common denominators and move forward together on the pressing issues. In the initial documents of the European Union, it was the Union of Nations, not states. So that's something very interesting and something worth discussing on in the future. But later on, it got lost and changed, and it became a Union of States. Obviously, the founding fathers already understood the challenges of communities and the need for self-determination, and they wanted to create a space where nations can come together regardless of the state that they belong to. So that's something to be worth discussing in the future. Over and over again, the messages for and the calls for tools that can deal with these transformation processes came forward. And I think that is also, there are two core messages that I will certainly for always remember, which is the power and the strength of identity, and the call for new tools in order to move together on a global scale and really build on this diversity and identity that we all belong to. So I also love the message that integration of diversity on a local level, setting up conditions that can be an important condition for broader concepts like eco-civilization. So thank you very much for all your support, for even finding time to discuss these issues with us. And as I said, I can only hope that this is just the beginning of our fruitful cooperation. Thank you very much. Back to you, Yuri.
Thank you, Violeta. Indeed, I would also like to thank to all our contributors, to Bojan, Vicent, and Natasha, for their personal testimonies and their deep thinking about identities as pillars of communities and their relation to the civilization of the future, the civilization that we termed the eco-civilization, our desired destination. I'm sure there are many more questions, which should be the reason for to stay together. I would like to encourage you to write us, to reflect together with us. We will see each other in 2 weeks, and as Violeta already announced, we will continue engaging the today's speakers in the further debate that will not stop here and will continue through the next weeks and months. So thank you to all of you. Have a great evening, and you are now free to go and see what happened with the American elections in the meantime. Another ongoing experience of identities and changing identities. as we speak. Thank you and goodbye. See you soon.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.